Welcome, fifth graders, to your lesson on line plots. And in this case, they tell us line plots with fractional units. The fractional units part is not as important. It is simply the fact that we are obviously dealing with a lot of fractions this year. So I'm going to read this question to you and kind of walk our way through our lesson 813. We will probably break this concept again up into a couple of days, guys. So this first video will simply be an introduction that hopefully will lead into more opportunities to practice a second time and a second day. So this first one here says soil samples were taken for 10 days for a biology project. The frequency table below shows the number of times the various weights for the samples occurred. You can organize data on a line plot to make the data easier to analyze. So here is our frequency table right here. This is what they're referring to. And our number 10, it says for 10 days, comes up right here, guys. We've got 1, 2, 3, 6, 8, and 10. Those numbers are the number of samples, and they are showing us how many samples occur for each of those fractional weights. Now they've completed part of the line plot for us, or line graph for us already. And so as we look over here, we can see that the weight of 1/8 occurred one time. So as we look at this, that's why they've got one dot. I have also seen line plots, guys, that have used X's or other images in place of just regular dots, just to make that a little bit easier to determine how many, or keep the line straight, or whatever you want to do. But that is one way we can represent those number of samples. So then we take a look at the second one they've completed here, and we can see that 1/4 they have created they found two samples that were at the 1/4 of a pound weight. So as we scroll down here a little bit, guys, we see that like they tell us right here, the line plot has been completed for 1/8 and 1/4, and our job now is to finish this line plot based on the last three weight totals that are there. And so for 3/8 right here, we can see that there were 3 occurrences, so I'm going to put 3 dots just to stay consistent with the dots. I prefer X's personally, but we'll stay consistent with the dots that they have here. And now you can see that 1/2 had 2 different occurrences, so I put this here, and the 5/8 also had 2 occurrences right there. Now, if we do this fairly organized, and we do this equally spaced out, or at least for the most part, this almost operates like a bar graph, in a sense that now we can tell which stack of dots is the tallest. So if they were to ask us a question like which of the weight samples occurred most often or least often, we can determine that based on the line plot that we have right there. Now, as luck would have it, and as I've kind of looked ahead here, obviously I knew this was part of it. Question 2 says, based on these samples, which sample weight was least likely to occur? Now you might look at this, guys, and say that, well, 3/4 has nothing, okay? But right now, they just want to keep that pacing, and kind of like when we're creating a graph, we want to make sure our intervals stay consistent and stay the same. So they've just made one space on the other end of that, but that is not the number we want to use. We want to make sure we are only using the data that they've provided us. So if we look at the frequency table, we can see that our range is actually 1/8 to 5/8. So we have to use the information for that to determine which of them was the least likely. And based on that, I look at my dots, and the only one that occurs one time is 1/8. So it says, based on these samples, which sample weight is least likely to occur? The answer for that one should be 1/8 instead of 3/4, just simply because that is not part of our data set. So for number 3, it says, based on these samples, which sample weight is most likely to occur? So just like I talked about with the bar graph, which one sticks up the tallest and which one has the most dots? So as we look across here, we should be able to see that 3/8, guys, has 3 dots, and that is the only one there. So our answer for this problem is simply 3/8. That is the most likely to occur inside of our data set. And then for number 4, what is the total weight of the samples weighing 3/8 of a pound? Now, This is where we really do have to understand, again, our concepts of how to add fractions, subtract fractions, multiply and divide if we need be. We haven't really done much with division, but those kinds of concepts, guys, can still come into play on these types of questions. So here it says total weight. We've got to understand what that is asking us. Total weight in this case is going to be an adding problem because we are totaling 3/8 three times. Now, in all honesty, we could make 3/8 times 3 and it would get us to the same answer, but I think for all of us involved at this point, we are probably a little bit better at adding fractions and not having to convert our whole number of 3 to an improper fraction and make it a fraction and jump through all those hoops. So I'm going to suggest that we simply, since our denominator is already the same in that column, we can pretty easily determine that 3/8 plus 3/8 plus 3/8 should equal 9/8. Now, we've been dealing with fractions long enough at this point, guys, that we probably should realize that 9/8 shouldn't be our final answer. It definitely can be our starting point, but once we realize that it is an improper fraction, we should be looking for ways to convert that to a mixed number or its simplest form fraction that we have there. And again, remembering since it is a story problem that we should be labeling that pounds as well. All right? All right, guys, so from that point forward, we are going to skip that last problem that is asking you to find the average. And at this point, that is a little bit more than we want to handle in this first lesson for line plots. Please make sure you answer the couple of questions that we have in place for you right after this video and practice this skill. And again, remember that tomorrow or the next time we have a lesson, that will be again, line plots, and we'll get a chance to reinforce this skill. Thank you guys very much for watching the video, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.